Hello again, MgUers, MgUistas, MgUisimos. Welcome back to PD number 4. This will be your last session with me, Stephen Smith, NASA Education Specialist. Today we're going to talk about mission content, and we'll do a wrap-up and conclusion of your online PD version. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the amazing things that we're doing with the International Space Station. We're going to talk about the steps that we're going into deep space exploration. And we're going to talk about ways that NASA simulates microgravity on a large scale in order for our astronauts to be able to get a feel for what they're going to experience in space. So the Precision Air Bearing Floor, the PABF, is something that you should be very familiar with by now. So I'm going to kind of skip past that one. We've talked about it at length. And we'll talk about the International Space Station in particular. They are doing research on the International Space Station basically 24 hours a day. The astronauts on the space station aren't flying the space station. We're doing that here at Johnson Space Center, and if we're really lucky, maybe we'll get the chance to go and see what they're doing over there at Mission Control and watch them do their thing. But while they're up there, they're doing research in biology and biotechnology. They're doing Earth and space science research. They're doing educational activities, especially right now with our Year of Education in Space with Joe Acaba and Ricky Arnold, who are up there. We're doing research on the people who are up there to find out what happens to the astronaut's body long-term while they're in space. We're doing physical science research as well as researching tons of different technologies that we're using on the International Space Station that we'll use into deep space travel, but also that we can use back here at home. There's a lot of different ways that you can get involved with and see research that are going on there. There's a lot of ISS apps. One of my favorite ones is the Space Station Research Explorer, spelled with an X at the front there, app. And I'll show you a screenshot of what that looks like in just a minute. Also, you can look at the Research Explorer, which is basically the app, but on the web, at that website down there that I hope is more legible than what it looks like here. But anyway, if you go to nasa.gov, and just type in Research Explorer, it'll pop up and you'll be able to see it there. One of the really cool apps they have on there is Space Science Investigations. There's one on plant growth. So I personally am a biologist. I really like this one. And it walks you through an interactive, hands-on on the web. You'll get to move this little avatar around, and you get to go in and grow plants under different conditions and see what works and what doesn't work. Another really cool thing we have that isn't actually a NASA thing, but we use it a lot, is Google Expeditions. You can get these Google cardboards. I think they're like $5, or maybe as much as $15, depending on where you get them. But I think they're pretty cheap and pretty easy to get. And then the students can actually use their own phones, their personal little phone, iPhones or whatever they have in the classroom, to view the ISS. Now they have those also for lots of historical places, museums, you name it, and the students can experience that. There's a way for you as the teacher to control what they're looking at. You can tell where their little eyes are. There's icons on your screen, so you can tell who's looking where they're supposed to look and who's not, and you control all of that, which is really great as an educator. The Space Station Research Explorer app goes over all of the different kinds of research they're doing that I just went over a second ago, and you can click on any one of those and find out what they're working on right now, or if you look up there at the very top, there's it says expedition. You can change the expeditions and find out what they were working on in any given time at the ISS, which is really wonderful. A lot of what they're doing on the ISS is preparing us to go further and deeper into space. So we had the astronaut Scott Kelly on station for an entire year. We're going to probably see more of that sort of thing as we go forward. I would imagine trying to figure out what's going to happen to the astronauts as we move forward, until, of course, we hit that Star Trek level where we can just build in gravity and all of that. That would be wonderful. So the spacecraft that's going to take us out there is the Orion spacecraft. We're working on that. The next big thing with the Orion is the EM1, the Exploration Mission 1. And I have a really cool little video for you here.
Trump Kennedy Space Center in Florida at T-minus 3 hours and holding. And we're now in the final 5 hours of the countdown. Crew going down the elevator has been used by the astronauts ever since Apollo.
It is great to be in Florida today. The rocket is ready to go fly. The team is ready to go fly.
The new mission is quite a bit different than the shuttle mission. The next mission is to go beyond Earth.
At T-minus 2 hours, 38 minutes, 6 seconds and counting as the crew approaches the launch pad.
Not only for our expanded knowledge of the universe, but for the improvements you have contributed to on Earth. Have an excellent mission and Godspeed.
Crew ingress and work at this time.
Correct. Flight crew OTC, close and lock your visors and initiate OT flow.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. All engines up and burning. 1, 0, and lift off.
Goosebumps every time. Love that one. So let's look at how. So our next big step, of course, is to get out past the moon. But the point is that the big step is to go to Mars. So how are we going to get there, and what have we already done? So this is a really great graphic that you can pull off of nasa.gov at any time. Right now we're working near Earth. A lot of our astronauts jokingly say that they're boldly going where hundreds have gone before. So we're doing a lot of work with the International Space Station, which is in low Earth orbit, but we're pushing out beyond. The next step is to get the SLS up and running. EM1 is a big step towards that. Figuring out, they're talking about doing a gateway, maybe in cislunar orbit that we can work from. That'll help some of our mass, as we talked a lot about mass versus weight. We have orbiters around Mars right now. They're working on the possibility of a Mars transit habitat to get us out there to actual Mars itself. And right now in the Earth Reliant, if something goes horribly wrong, we can get back to Earth in about 6 hours. The proving ground part where they're looking out there around the moon, you're talking days. Once you're getting out towards Mars, it's months. So it's important to have your ducks in a row before you start sending people out there. There's the SLS. This is the largest, strongest rocket that any human being has ever built. This thing, just to give you an example of how much more capacity it has, the cargo version, to back up a little bit, the shuttle program took about 40 different missions to get all the pieces and parts of the ISS up and put together. The SLS system in its cargo configuration could send the volume of 2 ISS-size systems into space in one shot. It's enormous and incredibly strong. This is the Orion spacecraft. You'll get to see that, the mock-up of that here at Building 9 when you get here. We showed you that in the first video. The crew module there sits inside of the launch abort system. We'll get to see how that works in just a second. The service module, which is being built by the European Space Agency, I believe, carries a lot of the electrical power generation, thermal control, the consumables, things like that. And then there's an adapter which sits it on top of the SLS. Here's the progression that we've made. So we first had the capsule in the launch system. We did EF1, and I'll show you a video of EF1 taking off, which put us into orbit so that we could see the system at work, coming apart, coming back together, launching in. The next step we're doing is EM1. We're all super excited here. We were just talking off screen a moment ago about how excited we all are to see this get up and running, and just to see the pictures of going back past the moon again, going to the moon, but this time past, farther than we've ever been before. We'll do a smaller test, AA2, and then EM2. You can tell is going to be a lot farther out. If you look at the size of the rockets, you can get a feel for these are going to go bigger, farther, faster, and get us out there. So these are some videos of tests they did for the launch abort system. This is a test of the rocket that moves the whole piece away. So this is a big, strong, powerful blast. This is the smaller rocket that moves the adapter away from the Orion vehicle. Oops, my bad, technical problem. You can see that that's a much smaller rocket. This is the one that steers it, and you can see it controlling the direction that they're going there. And then finally, this is the system all working together.
3, 2, 1, launch, launch, launch.
And if you look up at the top, you can see the steering rockets are going to push it to the side. Then the adapter will come off and move away. And then a series of parachutes. The big ones don't come out first because you don't want to jar the people inside too much, because people are frail and fragile, unlike robots and other things like that. The first chutes just line it up so it's laying the right direction. And notice they don't come open all the way right away. And once they finally do open, it slows it down for a nice, easy landing. My TV froze. So, sorry, a little technical hiccup there. We were wrapping up talking about the launch escape system. The next flight test they did was Exploration Flight Test 1, and that went around the planet in a single orbit and then came back. The point of this was to test the launch system, but also to test the landing and recovery, and I've got some cool video of that for you.
Launch enabled, GE main power off.
10, the igniters have been lit.
9, 8, 7, 6,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff at dawn, the dawn of Orion, and a new era of American space exploration.
Good chamber pressure on the second stage. 6 minutes, 2 seconds into the flight.
And Fido, we also had a
Orion's events for the service
terminal
module
ignition.
fairing paddle jettison and launch abort system jettison.
There it is.
See it, I see it.
Capture.
It's at 130, up 40.
1 minute. Be 1 minute.
130, up 33.
Jettison at 5. 46 413. 3 back. 3 good shoots. FPCG.
There it is, I see it. Turn it down.
601 has FPC Jettison 3 shoots.
Move it up to our 3 o'clock.
There's
Stroke
drone
release. Both strokes release, fine. Mains out.
Start.
Awesome. We're back in space business now.
Oh yeah, this is awesome. Just say it over the radio or say it over the ICS when it splashes. You'll be the first to see.
Splash down right now.
1692922. So we have splash down 1629. Confirm 162922 splash down. Tower cottage. All right, we are. Continue on this heading. Ultra narrow for the Seamus bags, correct? Yeah, we can't go in just yet, so stay on this heading.
So this is the ship that's going to recover the Orion capsule. Again, anytime I watch any of that stuff, and maybe it's just because I'm a giant nerd, and I'm completely comfortable with that, but it's just goosebumps for me, and I just can't wait until we put people on there again and get back up there. A big part of what we're doing, you saw it coming through the atmosphere. That creates a tremendous amount of friction, which creates a tremendous amount of heat. Some estimates I've seen up to like 5,000 degrees. You don't want astronauts to reach 5,000 degrees. That's never a good thing. So we created a heat shield for that. This is a bigger surface than we had in the Apollo missions, so it's a little different engineering problem. We're doing drop tests. So, we've dropped this thing in every configuration that you can imagine to see what happens to the astronauts inside. One of the cool things I learned recently, because NASA is open source about the things that we do, the design of this seat is actually being used by Blue Origin in their capsules. So NASA being taxpayer funded, this is all open source. You've already paid for it. Thank you very much for paying your taxes. We all appreciate it. This is a video showing where the EM-1, Exploration Mission 1, is going to go. So we're going to get some speed going around the gravitational well of the Earth, out to the moon, again for the first time since the 1970s, out past farther than we've ever been before, use the gravity of the moon to slingshot back in, and then come in for a beautiful landing, much like the one you just saw. And again, here is the SLS, so impressive. While you're here at Johnson, I highly recommend you go to Rocket Park. Just stand next to the Saturn V for a second and think about how much bigger the SLS is than that is. It's going to go farther, it's going to go faster, it's going to carry more cargo. Again, all this stuff just gives me goosebumps. And we're looking at, hopefully, to have a launch in very late 2019 is what we're looking at right now. So, in order to get our astronauts ready to go out there, we have to be able to simulate microgravity here on a large scale, big enough to put people in. We have 4 different things that we do for that. We have the PABF, which we've talked about and Mike introduced you to. We do parabolic flights, also colloquially known as the Vomit Comet for obvious reasons. The Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, and then we also use sounding rockets for some of the smaller satellites. The parabolic flights, the aircraft has people in it. They go over the Gulf from here. They go up to 30,000 feet, do a very steep 45-degree nose-high incline, and then level off and come over the top of the parabola. What happens inside is you have 5 to 20 minutes of weightlessness. Here's a video of a plane. You may actually have seen this on Facebook relatively recently. This is a Boeing 737 called the MAX. This is one of the Boeing test flights to see the capability of the aircraft. Probably would not have your pilot do this while you're in the plane. The whole Vomit Comet comes to mind there. Just watch the raw power. And about a minute into this, you'll get to see the parabola, and it's very obvious that they are, in fact, in free fall or submerging. A little wet that day, apparently. Now this pilot actually goes well beyond the 45 degrees, and it's getting close to a 90-degree arc on that. If you haven't flown before, this is not normal for planes. There it is. Now just think, people actually do that on purpose. And pay good money for it, too. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next one. So that gives us the opportunity for longer term, again, 5 to 20, you get 5 to 20 seconds of this really good, and again, it's the entire space of the aircraft. So I know a lot of the Apollo 13 movie was shot doing that, so they were actually experiencing microgravity. The Neutral Buoyancy Lab is here just off of the center. It is a swimming pool that is 202 feet long, 102 feet wide, and 40 feet deep. It has 6.2 million gallons of water. So a fun math thing for your kids is to figure out how much that water weighs. The astronauts go in there. They make them neutrally buoyant, which means that they're not floating, they're not sinking, that they're staying exactly where they are in the water, which is what it feels like in space, and that's as close as we can get them. Inside the pool is a mock-up of the outside of the International Space Station, and the astronauts move around that and work through their plans for what their external vehicular activity is going to be. We have some really cool projects where college students are creating tools for them to use to simulate neutral buoyancy with the tools that they work with as well. Right now they have very simple mock-ups that they'll have on their suit, and then when it comes time to actually use the tool, there's a diver there who hands them the real one and swaps them out. The divers really take care of the astronauts when they're in the pool, moving them from place to place, checking on them, watching them, filming everything they're doing. And they've been able to come up with plans and work through EVAs ahead of time in the pool to make things more efficient when they get out into space. And even in times when there's some kind of emergency, they can work through the problem in the pool and then send up the procedures into space to make it work really easily. We also use sounding rockets. These are small rockets. They're relatively low cost. You can have a fast turnaround, so some of the projects beginning to end only last 3 months. It helps you to study even regions that are too low for satellites. So this isn't just testing components that are going to go farther into space. Some of these are the test in and of itself. They give you a parabolic trajectory as well. But this one goes, the Vomit Comet only goes maybe 30,000 feet. These go actually into space, but you're only in space for 5 to 20 minutes when you're up there. So that wraps up our last thing together. The next step for you, there's a web quest for you, and you'll go through that. That goes through the things we just talked about, the PABL, the parabolic flights, the sounding rockets, all of those, and asks you to kind of dig into that a little deeper and to look into how we use those at NASA. What's next for you after you finish your assignment and turn it in? You'll get a certificate from the badging system, and then you upload that certificate to the MgUE online community or, in Brightspace, and then you will be done with your online PD, and there will be much rejoicing. So I'm going to introduce you again to my good friend Mike McGlone. He just appeared there. It's like magic. It's video magic. And I'm going to ask, Mike, can you share with us what they can expect when they come on site?
Well, a lot of what you've been doing during your professional development is learning about what's going on NASA as a whole with the exploration, and also here particularly at Johnson Space Center. So what I would recommend getting ready to come on site is, if you haven't already, to visit the Johnson Space Center site through nasa.gov, learn more about what is going on here. I mean, we're going to spend a lot of time in Building 9, but that's just one of hundreds of things that are actually being done and worked on around the center. So learn about that. Come prepared for a hard week of work. I mean, we're going to put you right in the middle of where a lot is going on here at Johnson Space Center, you know, working kind of behind the scenes. But also come prepared to have a lot of fun, because while your devices, we're looking forward to see how well they work when you actually get them on the precision air-bearing floor. We know there'll probably be some adjustments along the way, maybe some frustrations, but as we talked about through engineering design, that's how we learn often as well, is once we test it and see what works or doesn't work, which actually usually happens more often, and then trying to fix it to where we actually see success. And just the journey of success. So come prepared for that. A few things we want to make sure that you're ready to come on site. Remember, safety is going to be a big priority for us, so not only making sure your device is ready to come and work on the Precision Air-Bearing floor, make sure you've watched the safety videos so you're ready for working here in the Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility of Building 9. Just all those kinds of things we've asked you to do to get ready to come and have a wonderful experience here at Johnson Space Center.
Yeah. So the one thing that I had to prepare the most for coming onto Johnson Space Center, because we are the coolest center of all 10, obviously, because we have astronauts. So I had to actually prepare myself for seeing an astronaut and not like squealing like a girl and going up and trying to like get a picture immediately. So you may want to practice that a little bit, like keeping your cool when you see these astronauts. I'm just right. I mean,
that's a wonderful thing. It is exciting, because like you said, we're working in a astronaut training facility. There's a possibility that they'll be walking behind the PABF while you're testing, and you'll see somebody stop that you recognize and peek around the corner and watch what you're doing, because they're interested. But being cool, we are about it. Hopefully we will get a chance to visit some astronauts. We never know how that will work out. But also, because I'm glad you brought this up, since we are in a working facility, I know it's really exciting, but come prepared to manage your emotions a little bit. It's not the Talladega 500 or some other big sporting event. So just have that yes at work instead of screaming like a girl like Steven does.
Right, exactly right. Well, again, thank you, Mike, so much, and congratulations again. You are wrapping up your PD. This is the next big step to getting you on site and ready for MgUE.